CNN's reporting and the New York Times is reporting. I am always inclined to go with CNN's reporting because I know what goes into the level of fact-checking. And sometimes it's hard to side with the White House when we know that they've gotten their facts wrong on, say, the Bowling Green massacre or last night in Sweden. I could go on.
That is Allison Camerata from CNN. Of course, she trusts CNN's reporting because she works there. So
please clap.
I would expect Ms. Camerata to say that. So welcome back. Speaking of which, though, more stories today making headlines. The White House has denied it, trying to insinuate that Reince Priebus somehow violated ethics by asking Director Comey to, tell the truth about these Russia contacts that supposedly happened with members of the Trump campaign team. And, of course, Comey apparently said, no, I can't do that because there's an active investigation going on. Priebus knows the truth. He wants the public to get to the truth. I don't think it was anything more than that, but now they're making it out to be something that it's not. Our guest is James Hirsen. James, thanks for joining us again. How are you?
Hey, it's a pleasure to be with you. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you, and thrilled that you could give us some time this afternoon. Trump, I don't know if you saw his news conference, or not his news conference, his speech at CPAC today. He hit a little bit of everything, I think, in the course of that, including the media again.
Yeah, he did hit the media. It was striking that he distinguished, and I think this was, of course, his intent all along, that his supporters understand, he distinguished between fake news and the entire media. And he pointed out that the reports of his tweet were essentially headlines like, the president tweets against the First Amendment right of the free press. And I thought that was very accurate, and it was pointing out part of the problem that he has been railing against and Steve Bannon has been railing against, and what the very definition of fake news is. And you used a word when you were describing the latest stories that are out there with the wire services. Insinuating is what you used. And that's exactly what the media has been doing, using background anonymous sources to essentially have stories that are news, which are opinion pieces disguised as news. In other words, the story about the White House being in chaos takes various forms. But the forms are that we have anonymous officials within the White House who tell us that it's a dysfunctional White House because personnel are lined up against each other, all this. And, of course, it's unnamed sources. It's the equivalent of, in the area where I cover in Hollywood, there are gossip rags that do that every day and create clickbait with anonymous sources.
Right.
And that's what that is. And essentially this story with Reince Priebus right now, on its face, the story states a fact situation with anonymous sources that is totally benign, but then cites experts, so-called experts, who say that this could pose ethical problems in the future. And there's where the insinuation comes in. And, of course, that's what the president is railing about. And we have to see if there's additional reporting. But judging by the track record of the media, this looks like yet another fake news story.
Well, my experience is they're not used to the pushback unless it's just against Fox News, because that's what President Obama did. He only pushed back against one source that he felt was too critical of him, and that was Fox News. The mainstream media didn't seem to mind when it was just Fox News. Now that it's all of them, they're more upset about it. So I appreciate you making that point. On this leak investigation, you've got a great piece up on your website, and I'm sure you'll probably have it up on Newsmax as well, about how these investigations that are being pushed for into White House leaks and some other things like that might lead to some unexpected places.
Yeah, there's no question. Look, this is the big, huge story that is a real news story, that is a real scandal that involves federal criminality at the highest levels. And we keep hearing one name pop up as we look at the story. And guess what? It's not President Trump. It's President Obama, because, the whole thing began, there was this narrative. The narrative was fake, and the narrative goes this way. We see headlines, we see people state, Russia hacked our elections. That narrative is based on zero evidence. As a matter of fact, again, there's this background, anonymous sources, a secret report, people in the intelligence community that claimed that Russia was in fact the culprit behind the DNC hack. The question of whether that affected the outcome of the elections, all the experts and pollsters say no. And so Russia hacked the elections is a fake story. But that fake story, in reacting to that fake story, the President of the United States, 2 weeks before he's going to leave office, expels 35 Russian diplomats, closes down 2 Russian buildings, and engages in what a dictator who controls a nuclear arsenal could view as an act of war. That's a very serious act. And note that this same President Obama did virtually nothing when Russia invaded Crimea, when Russia assisted Assad, when Russia had their military buzz our ships. Nothing. But when it was political, then he engaged in a reckless act of war, which prompted a patriot military general named Michael Flynn to contact the Russian ambassador to essentially say, don't tell your leader not to overreact.
Right.
A new team is coming in. There was nothing wrong with that. And the Logan Act, bringing up the Logan Act, we now know that the Obama administration did when they sought wiretap permission from the FISA courts, was in fact an indication that they were acting in bad faith. When they started investigating Trump people, it was the summer of 2016. The Obama administration started investigating and tried to get a wiretap warrant on Donald Trump himself.
Wow.
And they ended up taking one in October that was just people that worked in the Trump administration, but one of these warrants allowed them to record that telephone conversation with Flynn and the Russian ambassador. And then we now know, and this is empirical evidence, this is not from an anonymous source, it's from David Ignatius at the Washington Post, that he had a high-level official give him the content of a classified FISA warrant surveillance. That is a serious felony.
Sure it
So
is.
we have people, so now we know there's leaks. Trump has talked about it, and he has said publicly that he referred the matter to the Justice Department. That means it's referred to Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Now, people misjudge Jeff Sessions. They look at him and they see this sort of mild-mannered man whose middle name is Beauregard.
Right.
And this is a tough-as-nails U.S. attorney, his background. And there's no Eric Holder or Loretta Lynch to act as an obstacle for the investigation. So I suspect that Attorney General Sessions is going to convene a grand jury, if he hasn't already, take testimony, issue subpoenas, and there will be indictments. And
wow.
When they investigate, as I said, they're not going to have Eric Holder to stop it. Even the New York Times, when they're reporting on these stories I'm telling you about the Obama administration seeking these warrants, they say it's Obama advisors. It's Obama advisors, people close to the president, blah, blah, blah. But while the president was in office, and then right before he left, Obama curiously issued an executive order. It's 12333. We're going to hear this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It expanded the NSA's ability to share these raw intercepted communications, meaning wiretaps, cell phone taps, etc., with all kinds of agencies that have just tangential relation to national security.
No business having.
So why would he do that
Yeah.
right before he's going to leave office? It was right as they were getting this intercept on General Flynn, and they were worried about supposedly General Flynn.
James, I'm going to have to run. I'm running out of time here, but let me direct people to your website, jameshirsen.com, where they can read your very good article on this. And I certainly appreciate you giving me some time today.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
You bet. That's eye-opening. Thank you very much. All right, we'll be back with much more in the next hour.
This hour of the Mark Cox Show brought to you by Naputi Wellness, NaputiWellnessCenter.com.